Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. I'm Ginette, and with me is Elyse and Lisa. We are some of the mediums and channelers at Avalon Spirit, and we are here today to touch a little bit on the amazing energies that we have been experiencing that are amplifying. Like we've said a lot, there's 100 years worth of growth that has been condensed into these past 4 years. We're at the tail end of it. It doesn't mean the tail end is easier. In fact, it's more intense, but we have more knowledge, but that doesn't make it easy. And so within the realm of that energy, we wanted to tackle a few questions that we had come up. So this is definitely an invitation for all of you to bring questions forward, whether that be in the comments or you email Avalon Spirit, because we're happy to answer them. And so one of the two questions are, one of them is, how can we clear out old stuck emotions and perceived traumas from years earlier in our current incarnation and journey? And then as well is, does taking any kind of antidepressant or sleeping aid impact the deep levels of meditation and access to spirit? So we're going to wrap all of that into a beautiful package for this episode. So welcome, ladies. Welcome, everyone. How are we doing?
I put whipped cream on my coffee this morning because I needed a little extra pick me up. You know what? Some cocoa whip might lift the soul a little.
That's nice.
That is nice, Elyse.
Little moments of comfort, you know.
Yeah, a simple little thing for self.
In this
That's
Earth
right.
school.
In Earth School, yes. So we had the eclipse, the whole eclipse gateway and the energy, full moons, new moons. Now we're in the after. Quick little touch on the energies. How are you all feeling?
I feel incredibly, when you say the after, it's interesting because what comes forward to me, because I said, I feel so hungover, but I don't drink, right? So it's like, that's not it. I've had like 11 hours of sleep and I feel that like drain. And I feel like it is after such a huge energetic shift in consciousness individually, my connection to the collective consciousness, and like how it really can affect us each individually in that kind of collective form. So the eclipse was huge for me. Like the energy was so huge, such big energies that come forward and you're like, what am I to do with this kind of thing? And a lot of people that I talk to, same thing. They're like, I feel, it's like almost like you feel better in a sense because you're not in the like heightened aspect of like being like, whoa, but it's still like that kind of unnerving. It's like the aftermath where it's not all settled and like peaceful. It's like the aftermath before I find my grounding or my footing to feel grounded in my energy and to feel secure in my energy. It more feels that new legs, like Bambi thing, you know what I mean? It's like I don't have to worry about walking into the tsunami anymore, but it's like getting up and trying to maneuver through the land before things get cleaned up. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm in that in-between stage for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Elyse?
Yes. I am moving through it. Like since mid-September, I think I've been in the tsunami, hurricane, multiples, I don't know. I can't think of the analogy that
Yeah,
fits.
like the hurricane.
It's all of the things, all of the aggressive water movement. Is I'm in that. And for me, it seems like it's kind of dependent on the day. So to speak to what you were saying, Lisa, it's like one day, hurricane, tsunami, tornado, water. The next day I'm like, okay, I'm okay. And then I have to pause and kind of like find my legs. And then whoop, next day we're back in, that kind of cycle. So it's, and maybe not day in and day out, but kind of moving within that throughout the days, very much finding around the eclipses, the moons, some of the big kind of energetic portal days. It's extra intense. And then, since then, I'm still finding I'm kind of moving in and out of that. So
Have you been like exceptionally tired?
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I'm also not sleeping. So
Me either. I'm so tired. So I can go lay down during the day and I feel like I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm sick or I'm just like, and then overnight I'm like, what's up with this?
mhm.
Like, why am I not sleeping?
Mm-hmm.
It is a strange energetic flow because it does feel like I was saying before we started, it almost feels like I'm in the middle of a timeline jump. Really, truly. And I know that concept can be difficult to like really wrap your head around in a linear perspective, but it's just like when you're tuning into a station with a different frequency and you're in between and you haven't quite got the like luxury of like the beautiful connection to hear the music in which you're trying to tune into. It's like I'm in between stations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm. What about you,
I've noticed since the eclipse this like heightened electricity moving through me. So like massive headaches for
Buzzing.
days down my spine, like body pain, a lot of body readjustment, electricity pain. And I also feel like I'm not fully here. I know I'm expanded into different realms and levels of consciousness as well. So I've also found amongst the headaches and like, when you have such a bad headache, it's hard to think clearly.
Yes.
I've also noticed though that being expanded into different dimensional realms and levels, whatever my spirit is doing, I'm feeling very clunky in this 3D one. Like I can walk, even just this morning at the hockey rink for my son, I'm walking down to go sit. And all of a sudden I'm like, where did those 3 steps go? Like I'd taken 3 steps that I have no memory of taking those 3 steps. Like they're tiny little things, but I'm feeling very clunky, like a square tire, not a round tire in this reality. I am a square clunking tire moving down. So
what's your understanding of this? Because I can't agree more. Like that is literally my existence every day where like I'll look at my husband, I'll be like, I'm not fully here. Like I'm just really trying to focus on like being here and like okay, even in a clunky way, like allow me to feel like I'm somewhat grounded in my energy, my frequency, like what I'm doing, right? And
You gotta still do the human things.
I still got to do the human things, but it's almost like I'm curious to see what your understanding is with this, because I almost feel like sometimes our higher selves are like aspects of our light essence is being pulled into different frequency or different dimensions in order to prepare or start the work in that different dimension. And we're still here in this one. And so it's like we're running on like less of our like
the low power mode.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It's because I think there's many reasons for the feelings we're feeling in this right now. So I know from experience that sometimes I have had such an out of body experience. One of them was after a surgery, not my NDE one, but a different one, where I, for 2 weeks, was not fully in my body, and it made navigating this earth very challenging. And no matter what I did, I couldn't pull it back until suddenly I saw my spirit walk back out of a cave in another dimension, step into me, and then I was instantly clear.
So instantly. With that experience, do you remember that aspect of yourself leaving?
Nope, I don't remember it leaving. But when it came back, I knew what was happening. So the feeling is very similar now, of it not as intense, but I know that many of us and many of you watching, just like you said, Lisa, part of your soul or your spirit is doing things in other realms and other dimensions. And one of those other realms, so to speak, is this crossover of timelines that we have had. I'm going to go into like totally in-depth detail on cosmic consciousness on Wednesday, but we are kind of navigating 2 different earth frequencies. If you picture 2 earths standing beside each other, we're kind of hopping back and forth. And there's times where we are predominantly on one, meaning we are low power mode in the other. Yes. And then other times we're here and we're like, oh, all is well here. Yes. And you're probably low power mode there. And so we really are like navigating 2 spaces right now, which makes us feel really out of it.
Totally. And I've gotten snippets of me in that other timeline.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so then when I'm back here, I know that I'm running on low power mode.
Yeah.
I understand that. There's a frustration to it, but almost like a like surrender to it. But at the same time, it's tough when they do give you snippets of other frequencies or other timelines in which you're residing in, and then you kind of come back into this one and you're like, whoa,
Mhm.
that is completely different frequency. That is a completely different frequency. That's a different timeline.
Yeah.
Right? And it's
But
exhausting.
it is exhausting. And so taking that and leading it into the questions today, we're having a amplified experience of this right now, kind of collectively, because we made a collective leap from one earth frequency to another, and we're kind of navigating that. But what's been happening, especially the last 4 years, is so many people have been making these soul expansions into different realms and timelines, and then like amalgamating them back in and then expanding again and then pulling them together, like as we move through this ascension process, which does overwhelm the body. It does create burnout, overwhelm, anxiety, depression, all of that kind of stuff in a very human way. And even I find, even though I can understand what's happening, it is still very taxing on the human mind and the human experience and the human body. And so it is very common for a lot of people to experience depression during changes like this, to experience heightened anxiety, to, you know, as we expand our souls and bring them together and pull different pieces, we're also bringing up stored traumas, becoming aware of them, having to deal with them. Like, we are multifaceted right now in our experience. We are like an octopus with its 8 arms doing different things, trying to like root it in a perceived reality of this timeline.
Yes.
Right? So it's very, very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, how do you all feel? What's been your experience either for yourselves, with people you know, or just in general with the effects of antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds on someone's spiritual expansion or journey? Have you, either of you, come across that?
I think that, oh, this is such a layered question. Like, there's so many different variables that come into play. There's no black or white answer. There's no like, I would never step forward and begin to say, get off the meds if you want to connect to spirit. I think that's a really like judgmental perspective. And I think that if you're finding people say that, or the judgment comes up for you around that, it's something to really take a look at, because we are given different human like vessels in order to carry through all these different frequencies and timelines that we experience in our life. And sometimes being able to ground in a certain frequency, we need extra help. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes I move into a frequency or a timeline where I'm very connected with things that would normally never align with me, and then I move out of it but the key is without judgment. And so I think allowing yourself to feel into the alignment of what's around you, and if that is high anxiety or a depression, or like if that is the overwhelming energy within that certain experience, and you're needing or requiring or wanting, or you know, your human self or your higher self is needing a calibration in order to bring you into a frequency that you're comfortable with, that could be an antidepressant, that could be an anti-anxiety. It also could be certain supplements or whatever that you might, or like practices that you do. But it's really important to understand that it's not like anybody can stand on any stage and say one thing is better than the other for you, because that would be a judgment statement, and that does not align with your higher self anyway. And so I really think that this is a good question, because this is ultimately like, it comes up so much in the spiritual world. Of that, like, if you're really truly spiritual, you shouldn't rely on the medical profession, right? And it's like, No, we've all lived in this like dynamic, in this like world consciousness. And with it comes balance of all sorts. So if you chant in the mountains with monks and take an antidepressant, it doesn't like contradict each other. It's what is in alignment with your human experience at this time. So only you can trust what your human and soul and all of it needs to require to get through or exist within your current frequency. So really, like, if there's a lot of judgment around it from you or from other people, really step back from that and take a look at where the judgment comes from and what you truly need in order to stand in your alignment with your current energy. And I would really be like, I don't know, like if people are telling you otherwise, really come back into yourself, because only you can give you what you need. And that goes back to the trauma thing too. It's like sometimes, most times, we are affected or triggered by traumas that occurred when we were in a more vulnerable situation or a time in our life when that was kind of our power was taken away from us, right? And we have to observe it now. And in order to observe that and say, what did that aspect of myself need? And what does this part of me need now? And only you can have that answer. Only you knows what nurturing, what you need. You can tune into saying what you need. I need the help of an expert in this area. And so you seek it in order to give that, you know what I mean? But you can't look outside of yourself and say, this is how I feel. This is my experience. And I don't want to lose my connection with spirit. So I don't want to go on meds, and I don't want to talk to a therapist or whatever it might be. You have to be able to really get in the driver's seat of your current consciousness and ask yourself, what do I need now? And what do all the aspects of self that were involved in this energy need?
Yeah. Beautifully said.
Preach.
I was all like, I don't think I'm going to say much today.
Here it is. No,
Yeah.
I so agree though. And I think it's such a harmful and disempowering rhetoric that can come around. And we also know from a human standpoint, like there's still a lot of stigma around mental health and, antidepressants and those sorts of things. And, there's a spectrum in which our mental health lies. And there's so many pieces that come into where we land on that spectrum at any given time, from a trauma, from a chemical, like it's so intricate to say, as you were saying, Lisa, like, no, this is going to cut off your connection to spirit, or I just think is so misinformed. And I think, bringing it to a like human functioning perspective, it's so often we're told, you have to believe in spirit in order to really connect, and you have to trust what you're getting. And, oh, you want to manifest, you just have to believe that it's possible for yourself, and And yes, but in order for us as human beings to get there, there has to be a level of safety within our body, within our experience, within our nervous system. And like the world, and in the last, 4+ years, but even before that, did not set us up to have calm, spacious nervous systems where we can have a stress response and then we rise to that occasion and then it settles back down and we go about our life. That's not how the world's been set up for a very long time now. And so for a lot of people, that baseline functioning is of a place of stress. To then flip-flop and say, okay, you're going to meditate and you're going to quiet your mind, quiet your little stressed out mind, and you're going to hear spirit. That's almost setting someone up to fail, because for a lot of us, that quieting, especially in the early stages, feels like torture.
It can feel safe. Yeah.
Like that feels awful. I'm good. I'm going to go.
And what
and
if it's a voice that is trying to get your attention? You're trying to quiet it, but really that voice is the one that's coming up for you to take a look at and nurture and like tend to. So if you're quieting these old, like not necessarily old, but like aspects of self that is trying to get your attention, that is a piece of what we call kind of spiritual bypassing, but it's also like bypassing aspects of self that continue to arise. And if we continue to push them down because it's not spiritual to live in this experience of this aspect of self, it's quieting that aspect of self again. And that might be just the base root of the extension of your anxiety, like,
Yeah.
so it's really important to be like cognitive, like you were saying, Elyse, cognitive about the stories that we're telling ourselves about being this spiritual person. Because I mean, obviously we're all spiritual people, like that's why we're here. But that doesn't mean that we're only spiritual when it looks like this. Sometimes my most spiritual experiences are that of like the nitty gritty human-y kind of like stuff.
And one thing I found too with medication, supplements specifically, so we'll just say like something that you take to help stabilize your energy, your mood, whatever it may be. I have found that for most, if it brings you stability and groundedness within yourself, it's going to help you open your consciousness to spirit. When your energy is erratic and your frequency is erratic, that's going to hinder your balance of your spiritual self. But if you are taking something that is helping you to be in that state of balance, and when you're in that state of balance, we all know that. We know what that feels like. Even when it's a fleeting moment, it's a moment where like everything is quiet or calms. There's no tension. It's just, and if what you're doing can bring you back to that or very close to it, then I would say it's helping you. I think if what you're taking is not helping you and you're not feeling that kind of centeredness, and I don't want to describe this centeredness as like bliss and perfection. It's not that. We're human. We live in a polarized world and we have dense bodies. So there are things that go on. But in general, if it's bringing you to that, it's helping you. If it's not bringing you to that, then that would be a time when maybe you would need to look at what it is you are taking and maybe change it or adjust it or something to find that base point.
Yes.
And in the times where you aren't feeling grounded in yourself, those are times where it can change the way in which you can tune in. And it can change your ability to fall into a deep meditation, or it can change your ability to be in the dimensional level you want to be in. Right? Like if we take something as simple as alcohol, for example, we know that in most cases, alcohol will have a depressive, energetic experience to it. There is the lift in the beginning, of course, right? But then there's the depressive spirit or experience in it. And if you were to stay in that experience there and you're trying to tune in, you're probably not going to hit those way higher realms. You're going to hit lower realms. So if we take that same idea and compare it to if medications or supplements are causing this disharmony, you're going to maybe be in not quite the frequencies you want to be in. Yeah. And that's just what I've noticed with like clients and readings over many, many years is a consistent theme about that. So I really support what's being said here from like tried and true observations over a decade and a half.
And I think personal experience.
Yeah.
Like we've all gone through our personal experience of what resonates with us and then what doesn't, going through stages and phases of things that have aligned and then not aligned, but continually with them so that you can see, oh, I see the difference now. This no longer aligns. And when it's that, like, you can then choose, and it's not always easy for sure, but the more conscious you are about your state of being in whichever capacity it is, and really feel into like, is this aligned with me right now? It doesn't have to be, does this make me feel peaceful and bliss? It's what's aligned. And that is what you can really like feel into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it changes.
Hey, Elyse, you had something you were going to mention?
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's an aspect of this too around not forgetting your intentionality behind the thing that you're taking. So if you are thinking like, oh, this is blocking me, but I need it because of X, Y, and Z, or this is going to help me safely bridge towards the experiences that I want in my life. There's nothing harder on our nervous system than like forcing ourselves
Yeah.
into a space that we're not in alignment with. So how do
Yeah.
we get
That
there?
is
We
so
we make
true.
that bridge. We take those steps. Sometimes those things are taking things to support us to build that bridge. If we're towards the place that we want to go to, if we're in our minds thinking like, oh, this is actually holding me back though. This is da 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 da.
Yeah.
It's more likely to have that effect, just as, you know, using the alcohol example. If for you want to go out and have a beautiful night out with your girlfriends, and that, you know, involves consuming alcohol, and yeah, maybe you get hungover the next day and your vibes are a little low, you don't have to think of it as like, oh, I've just lowered my vibration. It's like, no, you just spent 5 hours out dancing with your friends
Mm.
and having some drinks and having the best night. Hold that intention with it. Yeah, does your body
Yeah.
need to recalibrate a little bit? Sure. There's
Mhm.
ways you can support yourself through that. Maybe then that's an invitation of rest. Maybe that's an
Yes.
invitation of other ways that you can nurture and nourish yourself. But the intention behind what you're taking, just as, you know, when you talk about like psychedelics, number one thing people are going to say to you taking psychedelics from a mindful consciousness expansive place versus a like, I'm gonna party and whatever, very different
Very
experiences
different.
between
Yeah.
the two. And that's just the intention and what you're doing behind it. So
Yeah.
don't
And
forget the
then
power of that.
and the results of things in general too will have an effect based upon the judgment placed upon yourself. Judgment
Absolutely.
comes with such a low density. Like
Mhm.
judgment on self is a low frequency. And so just like it's been actually measured when people eat and they look at their food and they think, I should not be eating this. Oh my God, this is so bad for me, but I'm going to eat it anyway, blah, blah. And that's like the frequency in which then your body is way more likely to react in a way that is in disalignment with like your highest self. Let's say, let's just use those terms. But if you then, or same food, bless it and be like, I'm very grateful for the nourishment that this brings my body, whether it fuels it for a short amount of time, I'm like needing the fuel or whatever, and having that exactly like you said, at least that different intention. But there's like this guilt factor too that I don't know why society is so like driven on this guilt thing. It's like you should be doing this, but if you do this, then you're going to have to do this. You want to be in this mind frame, you want to be grateful, you want to be happy, but if you take anything to help supplement that, then you should feel guilty because you're spiritual enough. And if you have this, that means you're not spiritual. You do this, that means you're not this. And it's this like weird expectation on self of guilt and that you have to be a certain way, when really it's literally just alignment with you.
It's so true. And you know what? That is like, that is such a beautiful umbrella concept or statement for everything, anything, and literally about the freedom of being you in this lifetime. What clothes do you want to wear? Do they make you feel like you? Then wear them. If it is pajamas, and I'm like generalizing, but if it's pajamas every day and that makes you feel like your superhero self and you feel in harmony, it's pajamas. You know, like I totally agree with that. I'm getting so energized by this. Like we need to be okay being our best selves.
Yeah.
In what that looks like. And then we also need to be okay with others being their best selves, even if it's not the same as our best selves.
That's
it's
right.
not one better than the other.
That's right.
Yeah.
And going back to it, other people's perception of what we need to do for us is their own thing. It literally has nothing to do with what your own vibration of authenticity is. Because how on earth can they bring you into your own alignment of authenticity without you doing it as well? Like you got to get yourself there.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing.
Yeah. I think the road to that too, just kind of circling back to what we started out with, is through those old stuck pieces, right? Because if we don't feel safe in showing up in the world in a way that feels really truly aligned to us, that is a safety piece, right? If we're like, I can't do that, 9 times out of 10, it's from a fear place. It's from a place of somebody told you this was wrong, of da 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 da. And going back to those pieces of self, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through somatic work, whether that's through psychedelics, whether that's through Reiki and or Akashic record or past life regressions or like mind body spirit approach, right? And it kind of has to be, in my opinion, a mind body spirit approach, because otherwise you miss pieces and they'll just come back, and that's fine. And I think that's probably why, you know, we grow infinitely on this planet, because it's just so infinite what our experiences have been. We have to circle back to those things. Forcing yourself into authenticity will just make it harder to maintain.
Yeah.
Because it's going to feel like shit.
Yeah.
And it's going to feel unsafe. And then you're going to end up having this kind of cognitive dissonance of, I'm supposed to be authentic, but when I'm doing it, it feels terrible. And
Which isn't
that's
authentic.
That's not the vibe.
Which isn't authentic.
Yeah.
Because our perception of what we should be is out of alignment with authenticity in that moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's a good ping of like, if it doesn't feel good to be authentic, maybe I'm not actually in my authentic self. And maybe I just have some blinders on or some lenses on that I need to take off in order to be able to see, oh shit, that's not actually I was doing that because I thought of blah, 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 whatever.
And
then
that's
you can
happening
readjust
so much right now. Like all of my clients, and some capacity that has come up. But like, what are you looking at and experiencing right now that is out of alignment? Maybe it was authentic and in alignment at some point, and you're still trying to make that peg fit.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to step back, especially when we are in this huge consciousness like shift of frequency. And like, in order to like clunk into your higher timeline, you got to shed the shell that you outgrew. We're not judging the shell's size. We're just saying it no longer fits. What
Well, it's
used to be
interesting.
authentic could not be anymore.
Yeah. And the timing of that is so right now, because the eclipse made a lot of people very uncomfortable for exactly this reason, to see it. And then what's interesting is, I mean, I believe that what we share on Spirit Coffee Talk is timeless, but for the purpose of the time right now, when this is posted, we are just on the cusp of 11/11 as well, and another 11. It's actually 11/11/11 because of the year and
2023. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, it's all about new beginnings. And so in this shift into a new timeline, we're being asked, who do we want to be now? What is our authentic alignment now? What did the eclipse shake up for you? What does it look like? Like, to be uncomfortable right now in many ways is actually a good thing, because then you can look at the pieces and choose what you want to do about it.
Yeah.
How does it
Without
align?
judgment.
Yeah.
Look at yourself. What no longer fits?
Yeah.
It's okay if it did for a super long time and it feels a bit uncomfortable and vulnerable to say this no longer does. And it might take a hot sec to be able to digest that and then introduce that to other people. But it's like, this is the point of it. This is what it's calling you forward for. With such accelerated ascension that's happening on a different kind of level, you agreed to step into this higher functioning aspect of self. And so it's going to pull you forward. Right?
Absolutely.
But only you really knows if it feels authentic.
Yeah.
And it's a practice. It's a practice going back into those aspects of self and giving them a voice. It's a practice re-looking at something that say that, you know, doesn't fit. And so I'm going to play with how I can go through my daily life without integrating that anymore, because it doesn't align. It's giving yourself that space, but it is like a muscle that you need to help work. And so have patience with yourself and always come back to self, because you will know more than anybody else, always. Take it easy on yourself. Words that we say have such a strong vibration right now too. And like that frequency of words. So when we're talking to self, be really conscious about the frequency of the words that we're speaking, because you require this like frequency of acceptance, authenticity, and love. And that comes from the voice that you give yourself. And I guarantee you, it's not you need to do better. You're not enough. This is stupid. Or why are you making mistakes? Or this or this. Those are not in alignment with the frequency in which you're moving forward with. To really start being conscious about those thoughts and those words and the why and the patience and the love that you have for self, in order, like you said, Ginette, to come back into that balanced state, that equilibrium.
Yeah.
Only you know.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Well, any other
Well, thank you
other
for those
thoughts?
questions too. I think it's very timely. I think there's a lot of people who are really like reaching this state of wanting to, you know, have that a little bit of comfort in that. So I really appreciate it. And anybody else who has questions about anything, bring it forward, because it really elicits some really great conversations that I think that a lot of people are feeling at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for your insights and your input. And thank you to all of you for tuning in and joining. And if you are new to Spirit Coffee Talk, welcome. Please do subscribe, share, and like, because it really helps with the algorithms. So thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you all next week.
Oh, tune into Cosmic Consciousness too.
Oh, yeah,
Next.
right. If you want to know about this crazy timeline quantum leap, you'll want to see that on Wednesday night. So you can sign up for that at avalonspirit.com. All right. Bye, everyone.